You've heard from other writing teachers or you've read it in a book somewhere, probably this one, that you need to craft a bunch of backstory for your characters so you know how to write them. And I'm sorry to say that's not accurate. Like, not at all. We're going to talk about what is backstory. That's going to go quick. How much backstory do you need? That's also going to go quick. When creating backstory is helpful, not as quick, and a couple of broad things along the way to help you as you think about your characters. And I've also linked below 100% free a worksheet for my screenwriting fast track course. Now in that course, I spend a lot more time than I'm going to in this video talking about backstory in the larger umbrella of how to build effective characters. And building characters is just one section of that robust course, which gives you all the tools you need to craft a story. So the free worksheet is below, be sure to grab that. And there are links to the fast track also below if you're interested in that. So what is backstory? Well, it's either anything or everything that's happened to your characters before the story begins. And some writing teachers will tell you that it's everything that happened to the main character, and you have to know what all of that is. But frankly, they're wrong. I mean, I'm sure Ethan Hunt went to elementary school. I'm sure he had a second grade teacher, but I don't care about that part because that part of his backstory is irrelevant to any Mission Impossible story. And yet, some writing teachers are going to tell you that you need to know that stuff. No, you don't. So how much backstory do you actually need? And I hope you're paying attention because this extends to a lot of things, and I know you're smart, so I'm hoping you're going to do some extrapolation on your own. Okay, you ready? The only backstory you need for any character is what actually impacts the story itself or the character's decisions within the story. That's it. Their favorite food, well, only if it's a plot point or important to the story. Their biggest regret, only if it's a plot point or important to the story. The nature of their relationship with their parents, only if it's a plot point or important to the story. Who their first kiss was with, only if it's a plot point and important to the story. Any other historical fact from their fictional life, say it with me, only if it's a plot point and important to the story. All those 10-page biographies people tell you to write about each of your characters, useless. A waste of time. And Sid Field is the worst propagator of this ideology for screenwriters, and honestly, creative writing college professors are pretty much the second worst. Let me read you a paragraph from Sid Field's book, from this one right here, and as context, he's talking about writing a character biography, which is roughly a 10 to 20 page backstory for each character. You ready for this nonsense? The character biography is an exercise that reveals your character's interior life, the emotional forces working on your character from birth. Is your character male or female? If male, how old is he when the story begins? Where does he live? What city or country? Where was he born? Was he an only child or did he have brothers and sisters? What kind of childhood did he have? Happy? Sad? Physically or mentally challenging? What was his relationship with his parents? Did he get into a lot of trouble as a kid? Was he mischievous? What kind of child was he? Outgoing, an extrovert, or studious, an introvert? Who frickin' cares? If none of it is in the story, then none of it matters. Writing a backstory or a character biography is a great way to make it feel like you're writing a screenplay when you aren't actually writing anything. Congratulations, you've just been duped. Now, if the backstory is relevant to the story you're telling, okay, then you need to know. If it isn't, it doesn't matter, and you're wasting your time writing it or even thinking about it. So let's think critically for a second. When might figuring out backstory actually be helpful? When is it worth your time to spend thinking about backstory? And more importantly, how should you be thinking about backstory? And there are really two instances when thinking about your character's backstory when that's actually helpful. One, when it's a plot point and important to the story. Okay, if a character was bullied as a kid and that's a motivator for why they're doing stuff and it comes up in conversation, okay, sure, it's worth thinking about those bullying incidents. Otherwise, nope. Hopefully, with everything I've already said, this one kind of makes sense already. But the second way backstory might be helpful is sometimes it's good to think about backstory when you don't know some critical things about how your character makes decisions, just in general, and how your character deals with conflict. Again, kind of in general. Because what are two things that your character should be doing in any story? Making decisions and dealing with conflict. Now, if your character is too passive, you have a bad character. I'm sorry, you do. They need to be making decisions, even if those decisions are to actively avoid doing what they should be doing. Those are still decisions. And if your character isn't dealing with conflict, okay, then you have a whole lot more problems than character creation there, Skippy, because if you don't have conflict, you don't have a story. The worksheet I've attached below, again, totally free, gives you some questions and things to consider, but they are all related to the story, to the way your character makes decisions, and the way your character deals with conflict. So if you don't want the freebie, I mean, that's cool. Come up with your own questions about a character's backstory. But if the questions you come up with aren't story related, or related to how that character makes decisions, or related to how that character deals with conflict, you're wasting your time with the backstory that you're really working on really hard because I'm supposed to write a character biography. Nope. And I can guarantee you that if you've written more than 2 pages of backstory for any single character in any story, you've written too much and you're wasting your time. Your efforts would be better spent in figuring out your story than in trying to figure out your character's complex and complicated backstory. So let me give you a secret hack. Okay, you ready? Most professional screenwriters I know spend 0 time writing character biographies or backstories or anything. They figure out the story. That's where they focus their efforts. They figure out the story, and then they tap into any backstory elements they need to make the character fit the story they're trying to tell. They don't try to shape the story around the character. They've put the characters into the story. They make them fit. Everything is in service of the story. And if it isn't helping the story, it's just a waste of time, not only to write that backstory, but even to spend time thinking about it. The only time I've ever spent working on backstory was when I was writing an historical fiction based on real life people. I was trying to be somewhat true to who they actually were, and I needed to understand them a little more. Most of the time though, when I'm writing, nope, don't care. Most of backstory is irrelevant to the story anyway, and it's a waste of my time to try to figure it out. I figure out my story, I figure out who I need my characters to be to make that story work in the way I want to tell it, and then I craft only the backstory elements I need for each character to make all that work. And every professional writer I know does the same thing. But if you want to keep writing a bunch of pages of backstory for your characters because it makes you feel good and makes it feel like you're writing a screenplay, well, knock yourself out. And if you want to waste your time in learning the craft and becoming a better screenwriter just by doing it all on your own, I mean, that's on you. But are you really against moving faster towards screenwriting mastery and learning the tools you need to craft a story? Okay, if not, and you're tired of not knowing what you need to know to find success faster, consider getting on the fast track and learning the tools you need, including how to create and build effective characters. But if you want to go a step further and not only learn the tools, but also hone your process of writing a script from marketable idea all the way to finished draft, one that you can actually shop around and do that multiple times, you should book a call with me and talk to me about the Screenplay Navigator. Links are below for all of those things. But if you don't want to do them, that's fine. And if you want to go at your own pace, that's cool. If you want to learn something else about screenwriting, watch this. If you found value, fun buttons below. If you want to go to the next level in your screenwriting, links below. And when you tell a story, don't spend hours crafting backstories. Just tell a story that matters. See you later.